short term to get all that in place, I think it's a bit of a long shot. However, let's hope, let's dream, let's try. As long as there's sustenance to what they're saying, as long as there's clear criteria for people to do, as long as we are generating this extra income that we're hopefully going to get, you never know. There might be loads of these big investors wanting to come in. You know, rugby union at the moment financially is looking like it's in a bit of a turmoil.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Dockhouse Rugby Show. Dave and myself, super excited. We're joined back onto the show, our regular referee. He's a former Superleague referee and now an ambassador with the State of Mind Sport charity. It's Mr. Ian Smith. Ian, welcome back to the show.
Oh, good evening and thank you very much for the invite. You two guys are looking well. Hope you're okay.
We're doing all right. Lots happening this week, Ian. Obviously, we've come towards the back end of the season now. That's done and dusted with, so we will talk about that. But firstly, I want to get into the big topic of the week. IMG, the global organisation who have come in to have a look at assess the sport as part of a 12-year strategic plan and to partnership with the Rugby League. Obviously, delivered the first set of recommendations for the sport, and then we're going to go through them. Dave's had a really good read of them. Dave is our little brain box on
guru.
This one. Yeah, he's our guru.
Yeah, well, I'll talk you through a few things, but first of all, guru. That's I'm probably not a guru on it, but I've had a read of it.
Voodoo.
Voodoo.
You're a voodoo doll. Voodoo the voodoo from the guru.
I possibly know more about that than I do this IMG.
That's worrying.
I'll just take you through some of these recommendations and then we'll discuss them. I have read a lot of the social media comments, so it's worth noting before we get into this that there's a lot more information filtering out through social media than I've read officially on these updates. Now that may be that a lot of it's speculation, which when you hear enough times starts to become fact, or genuinely people may know quite a bit more, which is now starting to filter through. So we'll try and temper some of those as being speculation for now because we're not 100% sure.
Can we do it as a quiz? Is it true or is it bull?
True or false?
Yeah.
So the recommendations are reposition calendar, which optimises flow, narrative and engagement, incorporating regular peaks of interest and a compelling season climax. So I guess that's the grand final. And the other one that comes after that that's pretty much linked, a calendar aligned with a global game to facilitate an international window in October and incorporate a mid-season international. So that's pretty much saying we're going to look at this calendar and we're going to change it if we need to ensure we get that international at the end of the year and we get a mid-season international. So a lot of focus on international. How much do you think we need to change the calendar we've got already to make that happen?
Oh, I'm a massive fan of international rugby league. My worry is, have IMG had a long conversation with the NRL, who really, let's not beat around the bush, are the power makers in international rugby league. As much as we don't like to admit that, but they hold all the power with their players, as we knew from cancelling the World Cup the year before. So if IMG have had a conversation with the big cheeses at the NRL and said, right, at the end of the season, we're going to put an international calendar together to make sure that all the major rugby league playing nations play, and they're in agreement with that, absolutely fantastic. I genuinely believe that international rugby should be the pinnacle. Unfortunately, the state of origin seems to be the pinnacle of the NRL, which it is for the NRL, but not for the global game. So I would love Super League, NRL, play their season, end of the season, they play International Rugby League, then they have a break, then they come back. Absolutely fantastic. I'm just a bit worried, if I'm being really cynical, how the NRL will view IMG's proposal about having a meaningful international calendar at the end of every year. I don't want to be cynical because I try not to be. I'm trying to be really hopeful. I just know how or what I've read about the NRL regarding international rugby league, and it worries me.
Yeah, that I think most people would agree with you there. We're very much in favour of meaningful internationals and many more of them. I remember going as a child with Keith and our dads in 1986, I think it was, all 3 tour games, Australia v Great Britain, and it sticks with you. Like that felt like the pinnacle, where now the international game has drifted away and club rugby seems to be more engaging for many of the fans. So it's flipped on its head a little bit from in the last 30 or 40 years, and this seems to be identifying that we need to flip that back and get international rugby league back at the forefront of many people's minds. So I'm very keen, as you are, to see more internationals, but the calendar will have to shift, it's saying. But it's talking about a finale, so I presume the grand final, and that will enable October for meaningful internationals. So will they look to bring that grand final to late September, pretty much the week it was this year when it was brought forward a couple of weeks?
Well, I think they said that the Super League is going to start a little bit later, either next year or the year after. So if it's going to start later and finish earlier, does that mean we're going to have a lot of double headers, which if you remember, what was it, 3 weeks ago when we had that Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday game when there was a bank holiday? Yeah. And people were saying about the quality of the game was poor because players were injured. How many teams virtually, because they had nothing to play for, just decimated their whole squad? And I just think if you're going to have a competition that's maybe condensed, you've got to look after the player welfare, because we want the quality. I don't want to turn up to watch a game of rugby league or watch it on telly where you've got 6 or 8 or 10 reserve grade players playing because they're resting the first team because they had a game 2 or 3 days before. It doesn't make sense. It's got to be meaningful, week-to-week competition. And if it means we only have 24, 26 fixtures, then so be it. I'd rather have quality than quantity.
They're looking at 22, so they're looking at the removal of loop fixtures and the removal of magic. So it'll reduce the amount of games. So you can start later and finish.
Yes, you can.
Which was very similar to the very first Super League when we went to summer. That it used to start quite a bit later than it does now. But people have mentioned, and this has come up from comments on our Facebook group, is can clubs survive on so few games? One of the drivers behind the games is the clubs themselves to create income and create interest. You reduce those games, you're reducing the income for those clubs. Will clubs go for that with such a reduction?
Well, the answer is it's always income over expenditure, isn't it? You know, if people are going to get 11 quality fixtures and they're going to go to all of them rather than pick and choose because they played Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, and they're absolutely exhausted, then, you know, maybe, I don't know, 11 home fixtures, will that sustain a club rather than the 13 that they've had? Will 2 extra fixtures make a difference? Will the sponsorship that IMG can might maybe bring in be able to alleviate that loss?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like you say, you know, as well, one of the things you've got to think about, given today's climate as well, is that rugby league is a family sport as well, and a lot of the time a dad will go with 1 or 2 of his children, or so a grandparent will take theirs, or a mum will go with their children, you know, or an aunt or an uncle, whatever it may be, whatever that mock-up of that family is. But if you're going on a Friday and you're paying to get in, and then you're paying again on the Monday, that's a lot of money within a week and within that month. Like you say, if there are a reduced set of amount of games, but the better quality, and you know you're going to get your first graders in, albeit, you know, everybody being fit and healthy and selectable, and no bans and what have you, then, you know, yes, people are more likely to attend, I would think, a regular home game season.
How many do you think then, Keith, you would have to improve your gate to make up for the games that you've lost? 20% on your gate? Would that make up that loss?
I mean,
you got less running costs because you're only running half as many games. So your stadium costs will come down, your lights and stewards and so on.
Well, it's a sixth less, isn't it? So it's 16% less. So they've got to generate 16% more. Now, like you said, if it means they don't have to hire or rent the ground for them 2 extra games, if they don't own the ground, they don't have to pay stewards, they don't have to pay electric, they don't have to pay all that, then maybe that 16% might come down to 8%. So all of a sudden, and they might not be playing winning bonuses, so there might be a bit of an index linked there. Yeah. I don't know. But
efficiency savings. There's definitely efficiency savings. But
aren't they having, sorry for interrupting, Dave, aren't they having double headers for Challenge Cup to try and get a little bit back? Or,
there's some talk, despite Keith building it up a lot, that I knew all of this.
I'm just throwing him under the bus.
I put me on the spot. But there was talk of the Challenge Cup having a different format, potentially, to what it has at the moment. So that people spoke about the Champions League structure, where you have small mini groups going through to a next knockout stage. So there's been talk of that. So... yeah.
Well, I've also read today that it's home and away, and it's an aggregate over the 2 games. So, yeah.
Well, like Champions League football?
Yeah, that's what I read today.
Yeah, away tries.
Now, that was on social media, so it might not have been right, but yeah, no.
Away tries counts as 2. 8 points for an away try.
Yeah. 3 points for conversion if you're behind. That was the one, wasn't it?
That's it.
So there's all sorts of shenanigans, isn't there? Yeah. But no, I'm very much quality over quantity, I have to say.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. If the clubs can finance it and it'll work that way, I like the sound of these changes, I'll be honest. The next change is quite a long-winded one, and one that has caused probably the most chat on social media. So bear with me a moment while I read it out. I've got it on the screen next to me. So participation in the top tier to be based on a range of on and off-field measures, delivered through a club grading system with the aim of supporting financial sustainability and encouragement of investment into clubs. Goes on to say Category A clubs will be guaranteed participation in the top tier. Category B clubs will be reassessed annually, with the highest ranking clubs occupying the remaining slots in the top tier. Promotion and relegation will continue on the field of play between second and third tiers, and with Tier 2 increasingly filled with strong Category B clubs. So what that sounds, the top tier, so Tier 1 and Tier 2, at the moment Super League and Championship, there'll be no automatic promotion and relegation, although clubs will be able to increase viability through off-field, better stadiums, better increasing income as respects and those type of things, infrastructure and so on, to climb the ladder in categories and therefore being with a chance to gain promotion to the top tier should opportunity arise. And between Tier 2 and Tier 3 there's automatic promotion and relegation. So the hope is that clubs will see this and have to improve what they do off the field to give them the best chance of being in that top tier. Just on the field alone isn't good enough. If you've not got everything behind it or the infrastructure, but you're good on the field, that may not be enough to get you in that top tier. Similar to licensing in a way, but I like the way that it's now categorising clubs and it's encouraging clubs to do better. Do you agree with me there, Ian? Or?
Yeah, to a certain degree. My worry still goes back to if I have no points in the league, so I play 22 matches, I'm bottom of the league with no points. Yeah, I'm bringing in decent revenue from sponsorship. I've got a good ground. I have an academy and a youth system, but yet I get no points. Where does that leave me? So I'm category A on everything else, but my playing roster is absolutely poor because it doesn't really matter. Because I'm always guaranteed Super League. So it doesn't matter how quality my players are because I'm guaranteed Super League. Does that fit right? Is there going to be a weighting on points as well? Or is it purely about the investment, about the structure, about the stadium?
I believe it's a blend, but it's a good point you make. But I'd argue that if the team is doing so well off the field but struggling on it, so that certain squad at that period of time are really struggling, but you're a big, sound, solid club, you're worth your place at that top table because you're contributing to the whole of Rugby League because of that. You then got the time to develop that playing squad. One risk with up and down at the moment is going from full pro to semi-pro. It's a massive jump. Players are uncertain on their futures. It leads to people looking for contract negotiations early in the year, which has also been brought up on Facebook. Is that right that people are looking for those negotiations so early and can have a new club for next year and they're only a quarter of the way through this season? All of that insecurity is born from that massive drop. It's not a drop, just a drop in leagues. It's a drop from full pro to semi-pro, and the difference in wages is astronomical. And the team coming up has got the reverse problem of trying to build a squad on the field in 1 year to stay up, and if they don't, they back down, so you get these yo-yo clubs. So this will secure them, and they can invest in youth, because they don't have to get it right in year one. You can bring that youth through, they can make mistakes. So I see a lot of benefits to it personally. I don't want the door shut completely, because I do want those other clubs who may be struggling off the field at the moment, and maybe the playing squads are decent but not quite up to Super League. I want an avenue in for them, but it shouldn't be automatic because there's so much at risk. So I possibly see it slightly different than others. Some people are all for licensing and no promotion relegation at all. I'd say a lot of people that agree with promotion and relegation. And I can see why.
Can I just come in there then? Let me ask you a question. So, say there's 9 clubs category A, and then there are 6 clubs category B. Because it's saying then that the top 3 clubs of category B will be assessed and will get the place in Super League the following year. If we don't know how it's weighted points wise, how do I know whether I'm the 6th club, so I'm in Championship, or the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd club and I'm in Super League? Because 6 of us are in category B. So I don't know, because I think my ground's better. Well, it might not be, but I think my youth system's better, but it might not be. I think my investment's better, but it might not be. So you've still got jeopardy because it's annually. So at what point do they say, well, you 3 are there and you 3 are there? Is it the end of the season? So then if it is the end of the season, then all the category A's will take all the best players anyway. So is it not then a same continue? I'm playing devil's advocate here because it's like I said before, if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always got. And Rugby League, unfortunately, is not as healthy as we want it to be. So something has to change. I thought they'd have thrown mergers in, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I think that's maybe sort of.
I see the thing for like Cumbria as a team.
Yeah,
in one of the listeners somewhere.
What it does is it puts that responsibility on the clubs, not on the governing body or Super League or IMG. Is if you want to climb that category, if you're stronger as a merger, so you may be 2 Cat Bs, but if you merge, you may meet the criteria for Cat A. Puts that responsibility on the club themselves. I'm not sure whether anyone would do that. It's a very sensitive subject, mergers, and I can see why. I totally understand why that is. So, yeah, so much will come out in the detail, Ian, I think. Once we know more of the detail of how it's classed, I think Category A will remain. Cat Bs will have it reviewed every year. I think that's an opportunity for them to increase what they've had. It'll be done like an audit. I suspect there'll be a point system through an audit, and then if you're reviewed annually, you've got an opportunity then to do better in your audit and therefore climb that category ladder, giving yourself the best chance to climb the tiers within Rugby League. So
the Rugby League fans want to be promoted on an audit.
Probably not.
Or do they want to? Do we want to get promoted because we've beaten all the other teams? Look at the way that Batley, how they're promoting the Batley, the Batley against Lee, the Giants of Lee against the little minnows of Batley, and the excitement that's around, that game to get into Super League or whatever it is for this weekend. But yet we're going to get rid of all that. It'll be a case of, whoa, yes, I hope we win this audit this weekend. Who's going to get the juices flowing for that? Yeah. I know I'm taking it to its nth degree. And I'm not trying to.
Come on, you audits.
Yeah, the accountant rather than the scrum half is going to be the most important person in the club. The commercial director rather than the standoff is going to be the most important person in the club. The person who paints the toilets is going to be the most, more important than the fullback. It just. Again, I'm fighting against myself because I don't want to be cynical.
Doesn't it normally run hand in hand that anyway? So clubs who are making more money, who have youth systems, who have stadiums who generate income, they're at the top anyway. So it's you're not really going to get someone who doesn't have any of that, but an outstanding team and could compete at Super League. I don't think we've seen it, have we? Up until we haven't seen it in the last 25 years. So I don't think it'll be that big an issue. Batley's a really good topic because they're a fantastic team. I enjoyed watching them at the weekend in the semi-final. They play some superb rugby, punch above the weight. But would they be a regular in Super League if they came up? Could they make it financially viable? Do they have the infrastructure to support growth across Rugby League as a whole? I think they're a very, very important team, but are they in that position at the moment of some of those top clubs? I don't know. Maybe someone from Batley can correct me. I don't know enough about the club behind the scenes, so it'd be interesting to know. But obviously, there's a lot of discussion. We could have some more back and forth, but there's some other points to make. So should we move on and we can maybe double back on some of these in a bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
An expansion strategy to be developed that targets and supports the growth of the women's and girls' game and also growth in new markets. What I read into that is that when you look at spreading the game, it's really difficult in the men's game because you've so many other top sports at the moment vying for that, and there's a northern image to rugby league in the men's game. So I travel the country with my day job. I speak to lots of people, and it's just very often it's saying, "Oh no, that's not for us. That's just up north." People have said that to me. Well, that's not our game. It's only for up north, that isn't it? As if it's designed for, and they're not allowed to play it. So it has to break that down, and it's very difficult to. We've tried it for many years, but I do think the women's and girls' game has more of an opportunity to do that because that stigma isn't the same in the girls' game. It really isn't. They seem to be much more open to enjoying the sport, and rugby union doesn't have the same. It isn't as embedded as the men's game is, so it's almost an easier win for rugby league, I suspect. So maybe if we want to spread the sport, amateur and the women's and girls game is the easiest way to spread it, and then maybe the men's game can piggyback on the back of their good work rather than the other way around. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds very reasonable, and I applaud it. And you look at some of the women and girls games and the World Cup. You know, the Women's World Cup. God, there's going to be some cracking games. You know, there's going to be some huge hits and some great players. And you look at the Australian, New Zealand teams that are coming over against some of our girls, and it's going to be awesome. Yeah. You know, and it's you're right, because we are so embedded in that M62 and up in Cumbria, and we struggle to expand. And these are new markets. You only have to look at what football's done after the Euros and this and the other. It's just tremendous. So to getting women and girls into sport is an easy win, I think, at the moment, because it is just this new influx of, girls can do all this, women can do all this. They've got so much skill, they've got so much talent. Now they've got opportunities. And it's for us to really grasp that nettle and run with it. And we need vision. And I think we have. I think our women's and girls' games growing massively. You look at a lot of these amateur clubs now, and they can't wait to get girls and women's rugby league set up. Yeah. So it's growing at a massive rate. We just hope it doesn't just grow in the heartlands, but I don't think it will. But again, it's still about the buck. It's still, there's still a lot of cost implications on traveling around the country, playing fixtures. So we've got to really spread it and be clever at where we spread it as well. But no, it's a very exciting time for women and girls in rugby league.
Yeah, there's a lot of criticism on our opportunities to spread the game beforehand and to expand into new markets. And to be fair to rugby league, I think it has tried. It's really tried hard. But it's very difficult, and if it's not generating enough income, then it's hard to sustain it and keep going, and that's where we've fallen short in the past. And I think the women's game is a bigger chance of having a sustainable product across the UK. So I'm very excited by that. We've watched the women's game quite a few times, and we've been really pleasantly surprised at the standard of it. It's come on so much in the last 3 or 4 years. I do think they'll struggle against some of those other teams. I watched the ladies' Origin over in Australia, and I couldn't believe the standard was incredible. It was very, very high. So as good as ours is, and as much as it's improved, I think we'll go well, but it'll take some effort to overcome them. But the best of luck to our...
Absolutely. Oh, I'll be shouting and cheering them on without a shadow of a doubt.
100%.
So the next one, participation of clubs outside of the UK to be capped and with additional standards to support domestic growth. So the rumour is it's going to be capped at 2 French teams, no more than 2 French teams, and they will have to have a certain number of their own domestic players in those teams, and therefore develop Rugby League in that area rather than just using players from elsewhere and being based there, because you could, parachute in any area, and if you took a team to it, you're not really benefiting the area. That's a bit cruel, possibly on the south of France.
Isn't that what they do anyway?
Well, I think there's looking at minimum numbers of homegrown talent. I don't think they have the same restrictions currently. You look at Catalan.
Do you know what, Dev? Limoux, Carcassonne, Perpignan, Catalan, all them regions have layers and layers of rugby league.
Yeah, it's already there.
It's already there. And is that been the fault of the likes of the Super League, where they've set up bigger clubs and then brought other players in, foreign to France, so not non-French nationals, and pushing the younger ones out? So are they getting disorientated? Are they getting disheartened? Because it is from the youth level upwards. We've played there as a youth out there, and it's strong. It's very, very competitive.
Very competitive at youth level. We're not converting enough of those to first teamers in Toulouse and Catalan at the top table. So by enforcing more development of their own into those top team squads, if you remove relegation, they're not worried. They're not having to bring in top Australians and pay mega bucks to stay in the league. Yeah. They can develop their own without fear of relegation, and therefore develop French Rugby League, because as it's improved, but it's not improved at the rate it should have done, considering Catalan have been at that top table for so long.
Port Toulouse have been like a yo-yo, haven't they? When we spoke to Derek Beaumont from Lee, he suffered that as well. They come up and then they bounce back down, and they couldn't afford and sustain the wages that they had at that time, and they had to cut the cloth accordingly. The French clubs have probably had to do that. So giving them that security net, I think would definitely help promote their own internal growth.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly agree. Should we move on to the next one then? Just a couple more left. Operations to be centralised, where this can maximise efficiencies and drive incremental revenue, e.g. ticketing and digital infrastructure. So I imagine this is if all the teams have slightly different methods of buying tickets and selling tickets, you're paying for software and people operating a ticket office separately in each club. If you can centralise some of those functions, you're only paying once. You've got one team of salespeople on tickets. It's not a salesperson for St Helens or Warrington or Catalan. It's a salesperson for Rugby League games, and they're promoting it and trying to sell it. And all of them, some of the marketing could be centralised. If you've got a 50k a year marketing budget or 200k, maybe all the clubs could contribute to that and have some central marketing, so you get more value for that money.
And it'd be a level price across the comp for certain standard of ticket.
Yeah.
It would be good.
Would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm reading from that is like a central, obviously, ticketing thing. So you wanted a ticket for Warrington and Leeds, you go on to the RFL website and get your ticket from there rather than at the club.
Possibly, yeah. Some type of centralisation.
But would that then, thinking of that, would that incentivise either the neutral or other people to go, hey, do you know what? There's a game there. I fancy that. I'm gonna pick a ticket up for that while I'm here, while I'm on it, and buy a ticket for another game that you wouldn't normally watch.
Possibly, yeah. You know what I like, and I've often thought this: if you're a season ticket holder at Hull FC, and you're over this side of the country with work, as often I am and others are, and you think, I'd like to go and see a game, should there not be a reduction if I'm a Hull FC supporter? I'll go and watch Wigan and I'll get some money off if I show my season ticket. Because that person probably wouldn't pay full price, and they've already contributed to Rugby League by buying a season ticket.
Yeah.
It's almost like a membership scheme then, isn't it? Your season ticket, not only does it get you in Wigan, St Helens, or wherever you're seeing tickets for, it also makes you a member of Super League, which entitles you through this central office, if you like, to get a ticket for Hull OKR or whatever, Wakefield. You know, if you just, even if you don't want to see your own club, you know, you might want to take another game. You know, just anything to incentivize fans to become neutrals, to watch any game. We know we've got a great product, but we don't always market it. We don't always sell it well because everything seems to be complicated. Let's have a very easy system.
Yeah, and I think if you centralise your marketing as well as your ticketing, that they can aim some of that marketing to all clubs and all fans at all clubs. So you've got a better chance of encouraging that additional participation. So it's, I suppose, what salespeople call upselling. You've already sold the product, but you can upsell by selling them some more. So yeah, again, it's be interesting to see the details, but we'll
see. This is, I think, some of the. Sorry for interrupting. This is some of the thing from yesterday. Whether there's so much meat to put on these bones, they only wanted to give us a flavour yesterday. But we are surmising here. We might be a million miles off. But, you know, this is what happens on social media. Everybody then starts to add their own little bit. So before you know it's nowhere near what is going to actually happen.
Yeah.
So when are they going to put the meat on all these bones? Do we know? Is it just going to be a trickle out?
I think they've said they wanted to implement everything by and for the season for 2025. But again, I don't know. This is the first paper that's come out, isn't it?
Right. Okay. So there's plenty of time then.
We're just going back to that central ticketing thing as well. If teams are getting lesser home games because there's no like loop fixtures and double ups and stuff like that, so they need to increase the revenue, is putting the ticket sales to a central thing, because surely this central fund or this central organisation would take, they're not going to do it for free, are they? They're going to want revenue from somewhere. So is that the supporter that pays that, and the club still gets the same money as they would for each sales ticket? I'd be interested to see where the balance is on that side of that.
Yeah, I think there's still quite a little bit of information that needs to be put to that. Yeah. If this is encouraging a neutral to take in games that they won't normally take in, absolutely fantastic. It's a win-win. If it means that you're taking people who might go and watch anyway and they're getting a cheaper ticket via this central thing, and then the club aren't getting that full money. So not only they're losing that fan, they're losing an even bigger percentage.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from on that, Keith.
In terms of the numbers, the aim is by 2026 to have a top flight of 14 teams and 14 teams in the championship from 2024. So I think the categories, we'll start looking at those. I suspect in 18 months, 2 years, it'll have to start to happen then. If you're looking to implement something by 26, people need to know where they are and what the criteria is. So it sounds like a long way off, but I don't think it is. It'll come around very quickly, and clubs will have to start putting those things together now.
So then there's 4 extra fixtures. So then we're not really bothered about quality then, because we are going to go back to quantity.
Well, I suppose it's still fewer games, isn't it?
It's only one fewer than it is now. We only play 27 now. You're only missing a magic weekend. If you get 14 teams, you're going to play 26 fixtures. So then are they going to bring it to make it a longer season then? If it's longer season, then they get meaningful internationals because the players have played an extra 4 matches.
How many matches do we have at the moment on the regular
27.
On the loop?
They play 27 at the moment.
The other benefit, though, of having 14 teams, even though it may be similar amount of games, is you don't have this over familiarity. So
it's easy for you to say.
Yeah. We're seeing the same teams all the time play each other. It loses a lot.
It does.
So by adding more teams and maybe some round robins in the Challenge Cup, you'll see new teams or different teams play each other, which will add quite a bit more interest, I suspect. But the final point, if we come to that, and then we'll take some of the questions that I'll look up in a moment. A new brand strategy to be introduced and aligned with the above commercial strategy. So, new branding. I suspect that just means new branding, which I suppose...
IMG present Rugby League.
You see, there's a lot of voiceovers, can't you? I suppose if you're introducing these changes and you want to really sell your products and it feel new for all the fans who are there, you need a new brand to go alongside that. Is that just a new little icon that you can put on the download as an app and as an advert, or is it a new name completely? Will it be called Super League, or is it going to be called Rugby League North, Rugby League Live, Rugby League UK?
Why do they not call it rugby?
League Europe, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I read a little bit on social media today where they were talking about European Super League, or European Rugby League, or ESL or ERL rather than NRL.
Because IMG took over like that with all like the UFC branding, didn't they, and all that. So they'll probably try and find something that's...
I like ERL, European Rugby League. I like that one.
Well, the thing is about at the moment now, the football in women's football, they've got the Women's Super League. So the Super League is not, because of the growth of women's football, they might almost end up banging heads shortly, where it's, well, what is it? Is it football? Is it women's? Is it men's? Is it rugby league? Yeah. So European Rugby League, but is there already another brand of that? Is there a Euro League, or it's good luck to them on that one. Rebranding, as we know, sometimes doesn't always go well. But
Insignia, do you remember Insignia when the post office spent millions of pounds? For about a month calling everything Insignia.
Yeah, you've got to be really careful with rebranding, because it doesn't always fit. We've been Super League for 27 years now, and just be careful. Sorry, 25 years. Just be careful what we wish for. Because I think the brand is still good, but don't do any harm to put a little bit of pizzazz on the outside of it. Sprinkle a little bit of magic dust on it.
I think since Super League started, though, and we've had the internet's become so much stronger and more identifiable with brands and little icons, there's the Hermes, McDonald's and so on. Some of these brands, you only have to glance at them and you know exactly what they are, sort of the Volkswagen, Audi, those type of things. Do we have that in Super League at the moment? As you say, with the women's football conflicting with it. So I'm not against a rebrand, but you're right, it's got to be careful. If it's done right, it can be massive. In the world of the internet now, those icons and that branding is super. It's always been important, but it's far more important now, I suspect, I would argue. So yeah, I'm actually in favour of it. I feel I have liked Super League as a term, but I feel as though it's
run its course.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that now. So if ever you're going to change it, now seems...
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, but only if it's the right change, not change for change's sake. That's not helping anyone if that's the case. So there's quite a few questions come up on social media, Ian. So I'll read some of these to you. There's some coming up on referees, but we're going to record another show on refs, so we'll save those for them. As regards grading, if I'm reading the press releases correctly, grading will not take place until the end of every season. Will this not make planning, recruitment, etc. even more difficult than it already is if clubs are unsure which tier they may be playing in?
Well, that was my point earlier on. If you've got 9 category A's and 6 category B's, and I'm in a category B, and I don't know at the end of the year whether I'm in the top 3 of the category B's or the bottom 3 of the category B's. So where am I going to play? Am I nervous? Absolutely. And that was the idea of having 3 years, because at least you knew for 3 years, but it's annually. So it is promotion and relegation, but in a different guise. So I'd be worried, but we need to know that. How much is them points? How much is coming 10th, 11th, 12th in Super League going to put me better than the first, second and third in the Championship if all 6 of us are Category Bs? I'd want to know that.
Yeah, I wonder if, though, you're categorised in the off-season, giving you that category for next year. So if you did finish top, you've already been categorised as A, so you will have a chance of going up.
Right.
Rather than it all happening at the end of the year. Because it'd be too late, really, to say, well, I come top, but I don't know if I'm going up because I'm getting my new audit. The devil's in the detail, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You're going to use it, which will make a difference. We discussed this, but there's a good point here from Paul X. What's your feeling in 2024 with only 22 league fixtures for Super League clubs? So before they go to 14, they stop the loop fixtures. You might have a year or two where you've got far fewer games. So we discussed that, but it's a bit odd how you go from a lot to a few and then back up again. That's got to be hard for clubs, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'd have thought so. Yeah.
Oh, it goes back to our original point. Can they survive on 11? But having watched some of these extra fixtures, the back end of the year, I turned off because, with respect, I didn't want to watch Catalan's second team against the Saints second team or a Leeds second team because of injuries, because they didn't want to risk and they had nothing to play for. That's not sport. That's not rugby league. That's not competitiveness. So I'd rather have 22 really good competitive fixtures than have 26, 27, where 5 or 6 of them are just also runs. So I'm okay with 22, as long as it's financially sustainable. But that's for the clubs to pull the finger out then. That's for the marketeers. That's for the ticketers to pull the finger out and say, right, you know something, you've only got 11 games this year. You need to be at all of them because I'm telling you now, the quality is going to be absolutely top drawer. And if you miss out on one of them, you're losing 9% of the games that you can watch all year just by missing one. So don't miss it. Boom, come on, let's get them there. And hopefully they can sell it.
Buddy has a question for you, and that was a great response, but he's been listening outside the door and he wants to ask you. So Super League to run with 12 clubs in 2025, will there ever be enough Category A clubs to make that 14-team league starting the year after? Is that your question, buddy? Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. I personally
Super League back chat, did you? You never got dogs asking questions.
Buddy, if my honest answer to you, buddy, is I don't think so. I'd like to think so, but I think in that short term, to get all that in place, I think it's a bit of a long shot. However, let's hope, let's dream, let's try. As long as there's sustenance to what they're saying, as long as there's clear criteria for people to do, as long as we are generating this extra income that we're hopefully going to get, you never know, there might be loads of these big investors wanting to come in. Rugby union at the moment financially is looking like it's in a bit of a turmoil. So maybe this is a great opportunity for us to rebrand, to start something new, to start something fresh, to be excited about the future. And I'm not being funny, we've not got a lot to lose at this moment in time, have we? Because it's not healthy across the whole competition. How many Super League winners have we had? 3? 4? 4.
I'm one of those, only 3.
One of those was Bradford.
17 years.
Yeah. So again, it's, I'm not saying it's dull, but we don't want 4 clubs winning the next 25 or 3 clubs winning the next 25 or Saints within the next 25. That's not healthy for anybody.
It's not healthy for the sport as a whole, is it? No, I totally agree. Well, we could talk about speculate on many of these topics. We've tried to pick up all the questions that have come through. Hopefully we have. We've probably missed some, but we can always pick those up next time or just through social media. If you contact us, we'll try our best to answer them. And I think there's probably legs in this discussion yet.
Absolutely.
When we get more detail, I think we should come back and discuss this in more detail.
But knowing how Ian is as well, so any viewers out there, when you watch this, if you have got a thought on it and you have a comment on it, bang it in the comments, and I'm pretty sure that we can either forward that to Ian, but Ian's quite proactive as well. He'll jump on it and he'll probably answer your comment directly, but if not, we will put that to him and we'll try our best to get you that answer that you want. So the conversation doesn't stop here. Once you've watched, put your thoughts in the comments on the YouTube, give it a click, give it a like, and give us a subscribe as well.
And from me, Keith, Buddy and Ian, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you at the next show. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks, Buddy. Yeah, it's been great to be on the Dockhouse show tonight with these two. The one thing that I'm passionate about, besides being a rugby league referee, is working for State of Mind Sport charity. We talk about the importance of mental fitness. So please, wherever you are, if you're struggling, just talk. But if you get a chance to go on the State of Mind Sport website or Twitter feeds or anything, please have a look us up and follow and like, and it'd be absolutely fantastic. And thanks very much to these gentlemen for allowing me to talk about the State of Mind Sport platform. Thank you.